Let's get rolling. Thanks everybody for attending. This meeting is being recorded, so if you need to bail and want to pick up where you left off later on, that's great. Some of you are new to the East Bay community webinars. Some of you have been here before, and welcome back, and welcome to those that are new. This is a very special one. I think Kristen might be our first and only repeat guest. The first one was one of the very first webinars that we did like this back in the day. And as you will probably discuss, a lot has changed regarding the advisor tech stack. Can't get around talking about AI when this topic comes up. But without further ado or more blabbering from me, I would like to introduce Kristen Schmidt. She's the founder of RIA Oasis. And at least for today, but also in the East Bay community, she's one of our tech gurus.
I can't hear an echo. Can you?
Tech and operational gurus. I'm not getting an echo. Anybody? Is it me? Okay. All right. Well, with that being said, nothing else to say. The topic of the day. Kristen has a presentation that she's willing to and ready to go through. But if there are any specific topics that you would like to address, she has given us the go-ahead to keep the microphones open and make it conversational. But if you'd rather send me a message through the chat functionality or in the Q&A, I'll be happy to pass that along and make sure it's part of the discussion. But with that, Kristen, take it away. Feel free to share your screen, and we're just going to sit back and see what happens.
All right. Sounds great. I appreciate it, Mario. And thank you to everyone over at East Bay giving me the opportunity. So here's the thing. Everyone gets on these webinars and we end up checking our email and checking our texts, and you feel like you got somewhere. I do want to have this be an open forum. So when I start getting into the weeds of talking about CRMs and financial planning software and AI tools, as we start talking about that, please interrupt me. I'm going to introduce myself just for a short bit here so you understand what I do and how I work with RIAs, just so that you understand my position, where I'm coming from. And then I am going to share with you a very old school slide deck. I know it's annoying, but I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint a little bit. And then I'm going to open the floor and ask you guys a bunch of questions, which will hopefully trigger all of us to have some open-ended conversations. Little bit of disclosures and cleanup work on my part, what I call admin, before we get started. If you haven't been able to tell already, I am located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, born and raised a Midwest girl. Yes, I'm a Packer fan. Yes, the Bucks had a big trade. And yes, the Brewers are doing well, if anybody was wondering about that. I'm a single mom of two teenage grown adults, a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, one still working his way out of college and one just graduated. The reason I like to share that is I am just a down-home girl, just like all of you guys. I started in the industry over 25 years ago, and that was back in the day before Al Gore had invented the internet. So we were faxing trade requests, and I was using floppy disks to update everybody's CRMs in their offices. Makes me feel very old when I tell that story, but that is the truth of the matter. How did I get into the industry? Well, I started with a small RIA, local-based RIA about, as I said, 25 years ago. And I helped them grow, and in doing so, I was an CSA. So I grew up all the way up from CSA up to COO, and helped build them into a $3 billion firm, 27 advisors, and then 72 advisor offices that were separated. So we were multi-custodial, and we were also hybrid. So we were broker-dealer and RIA, so I learned the ropes. After that, I worked for a tech firm for a while, and the story is I actually almost got fired before I quit. And the reason is because I couldn't keep my eyes on one lane. I would work with clients and I wanted to learn about all of their problems and all of the things, and I was supposed to be just helping them with one piece of tech. So that's how I knew that wasn't the right fit for me. I worked for a consulting firm for a while and then started my business about 10 years ago. What is it I do? Why do I get to have this stage and talk to you? And why are Mario and Eric so kind in helping me to get the opportunity to be in front of you? Well, it's because what I do for RIAs is very unique. I work with independent RIAs in three major categories. One is research, assess, and recommend technology. What's crazy about me? I work in over 80 to 90 systems. I work with firms of all shapes and sizes in the areas of CRM, portfolio management, financial planning, client experience, and then all those quick win tools. AI, auto scheduling, e-signature, document storage, trading rebalancing, all the biggies. And so because firms of all shapes and sizes use different tech and y'all create different stacks, I had to learn all of them, which is kind of crazy. What do I do with them? Well, I help you find new ones if you're shopping, optimize or fix the ones that you are using. I help you integrate or optimize the systems that you're using. And I'm also a truth teller. If you haven't been able to tell so far, I am an Italian type A woman, so I will tell you like it is. And a lot of people are interested in that because, to be fair, Tamarack, Orion, Black Diamond, Redtail, Wealthbox, Salesforce, none of them are going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear to buy their software. I don't get paid by vendors, which is a good value to you. I'm a fiduciary like you are to your clients. Therefore, I don't care what you pick. I just hope that it fits with your growth potential, your skill set, your capacity, and your vision for how your business is running. With that, I also help firms with best practice and workflow building. So I have a very large menu of things that I do, which is why I can jump on here and talk about a lot of different things. So that's the perspective where I'm coming from. Let's dig into where we can help you and how I can help you. Now, I just mentioned to you that I implement AI tools, and I know a lot of you are heavy into using it. So if that becomes a topic today, that's great. But I do want to tell you, I don't use AI to generate my decks that I'm going to show you, my PowerPoints, because I just don't have time to even spend on it because you guys get the message from me, not my decks. So please don't make fun of my 1980s, 90s PowerPoint. It's just because it's easy and it just brings up topics. It's not about what you're seeing. It's more about what we're sharing. So you've been warned. Also, anything that I share today, I'm going to send it over to Mario so you can have the whole deck if you're interested in it. And I will also be offering my call link, my Calendly link. Any of you attending are welcome to schedule with me, and I'm happy to spend an hour with you to talk about things that you might have questions about or systems that you have challenges with to see how I can help. Okay? A little bit, we're going to be in this deck for a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it off and we're going to let it ride and everyone can ask questions. If nobody asks questions, then I'm going to start asking you questions. So it's easy. All right. So as we look at this, and this is just a funny, okay? This is what happens when I walk into firms or when I'm on stage at conferences and when I speak. We feel like the beautiful unicorn and we all walk around and we're like, I have Orion. I'm using Holistiplan, I use Zox, and I have it fully integrated. But when we're inside our firm and it's so overwhelming with all of this tech and we feel like everybody else is doing a lot more than us, then we kind of feel like the reality of the little donkey on the other side. So this was just me saying we all feel this way, okay? I wouldn't have a job if you weren't feeling this way. And Michael Kitces would not have a tech graphic that continues to grow with thousands of tech vendors all separated in little boxes that you have to zoom into if we weren't feeling like this sometimes. So we're all feeling like that, and that's okay. This is just talking about what happens when firms bring tech into their tech stack or they decide to buy something. Let's be clear, just because you have a subscription doesn't mean you're using it in your firm. I have a subscription to a local gym. I haven't been there in 6 months. Okay? Very different. I can say I belong to the gym. Have I ever lifted weights or walked into them? No. Okay? So where this is different, and the reason these bubbles are really important, is most firms jump to buying the tech and then putting in automation. What gets forgotten is, where is this data? Is it a bilateral integration? Is the data sharing? Does it create me to enter the data twice in 2 systems? What is the process for this system? Now that I have my new client onboarding process, I better put Holistiplan into that. I need to build my tech into my processes. Then we can also assess the tech. Are we using it to the best of its abilities and using all the features that it's offering? And then we can automate those features. So oftentimes these get a little bit flipped, and I have firms that come to me and say, I bought this and I have this, but they weren't thinking about the process and the complete data function before doing so. And that's where sometimes it can be frustrating implementing tech in your firm. A lot of times, we're all talking about automation. We're talking about AI. We want to make sure we're getting the bang for our buck out of our people, out of our staff, out of our time. Our time is very valuable. So we know what automation is. It's roboticized repetitive tasks. But the reason for this slide is I just really liked this statement here, doing common things uncommonly well. So there is a value in having a system automatically schedule your client meetings. Okay. And why do we have Samantha sending the emails and trying to schedule your client meetings? But then I also get a lot of pushback from firms who say, you know what, Kristen, that's not something I want to automate. I don't want to automate that at all. The reason is I really like it when my clients get an email from Sam and they actually respond to her. They don't like it when they get things that are automated. So there's a really big pull here when we talk about our business being relationship focused and how much can we automate that isn't taking away the value of the relationship. And that's where automation and AI can become really, really tough. And no one's really talking about that yet. Everyone's talking about, oh, AI is going to take over the world. Maybe, but it can't take over the relationship to that point. And we have to decide what pieces of the relationship we're willing to have automated. And that's where the strategy comes in. We won't go over all these bullets because I want to get into my Midwest, the meat and potatoes of it all. Okay. Thought of that right away. And I realized I was giving away my Midwest accent there. But these are all of the little bullets of why is automation hard? It's because most RAAs are struggling with having repeatable processes. They don't understand the system. They need more training. There's a heavy operational skill set, and many firms are lacking a COO or an operations manager to really have oversight and tell people and guide them on what should be next. Oftentimes, in our brains, we know the segmentation of our clients, but we haven't defined true client segmentation. Therefore, our automation is lacking because we need to know what each segment receives from us and what we are doing for them every quarter, every month, every day. And that oversight is another piece of that can be difficult. And then ultimately what we get into is developing the strategy. And these are all the things that are necessary and where I come in a lot of times to help firms instead of just buying something and having that gym membership to really committing to going and having the motivation to be there. Here are some of these questions that I'm going to pose to you guys in just a second. So I'm going to flash some of these and I'm happy to keep them up on the screen or take them down. But wondering if any of these are relatable and if any of you would have interest in diving into these questions a little bit more. So I get a lot of questions about where are the gaps in people's tech stacks? Okay, where are the gaps that people are seeing? So I'm happy to talk about that. I see a lot of things because I work with independent RAs. I'm also an independent consultant that is hired by larger consultants. So if any of you are familiar with Ezra Group or Craig Iskowitz, I'm hired by him often. So I get to see where larger firms and smaller firms do have gaps. A lot of firms also ask me, how do I know if I'm growing out of a system? That's really common. So we can talk about that. When it comes to process, two common questions I get. What if not everybody operates the same way? What do I do? How do I manage that? I'm not going to get Chuck to ever use a workflow. So what do I do? And what is the difference between workflow and best practice, right? We talk about what's called SOPs, standard operating procedures. What's the difference between that and a workflow? Aren't they the same? So a lot of firms like to talk about that and to understand it better. Integrations, we were just talking about before. Some firms think integrations are magical. What's the reality? Now, that's a generic statement. Happy to talk about specifics as well. But a lot of times the integrations aren't as sexy as we thought they were when we were on that demo. So I really bring the reality to it. And oftentimes we have to talk about the value of integrations. So you got your data in there. Now what, right? If you like to see it, great. Is it the end of the world if you don't integrate it? Maybe not. How should integrations be evaluated between the value and the upkeep and the oversight? And how do firms keep up with that oversight? And then ultimately, what everyone wants to talk about these days, so happy to make this a focal point for today. How are firms navigating compliance and oversight of bringing AI into their firm? Lots of talk about governance, your ongoing data oversight, the pros and cons of public model training and your LLMs. and really defining AI through your standard processes. It can do everything, but you have to tell it exactly what to do. And that can be hard sometimes. Now, I know some of you are already beyond that. So we have a large classroom of people at different stages. We have some users that are already, have their agents running and are utilizing that heavily. We have some firms who might be a little bit less advantageous and working on their governance and maybe testing the waters with it. I think anyone who speaks of it brings knowledge to what to expect and the roadblocks they're hitting. So it could be, extremely valuable. This is more for when you get this delivered to you. If you want to take a look at the PDF, you do not need to read all of these. But these are 3 really large people in the industry. These are just tweets that I captured because I thought they were just really relevant at the time. Danny Fava, who's now obviously, chief of strategy over at Carson Group, said the biggest opportunity with AI isn't replacing advisors. It's helping them create more capacity for the meaningful client relationship. Angie Herbers, who's a wonderful consultant. You think I'm tough, just wait. She's wonderful. She says advisors have always been behavioral experts, and they now have the opportunity that is far bigger at being non-delegators to becoming through a journey of being delegators. Okay. And that's true because all of us in this room are not good delegators. If we were, our businesses would be running like machines. Lastly, Robert Sophia, who is the CEO of Snappy Kraken and has really been heavily working on the AI world and helping people in marketing, says, this was actually quoting someone else, the problem that we have to solve is not whether AI has enough expertise. The answer right now is clearly AI has the expertise. What they don't have is a fiduciary duty. They don't have the ability to suffer consequences if they make a mistake. So it's just something to think about. Lots of things out there, lots to watch, lots to read. Obviously, there's AI meeting management tools, which is just scratching the surface of AI. There's information about successful AI adoption. And then obviously, as I had mentioned, I'm going to be offering you guys a call with me if that helps. I know I shared a lot of information with you, but we have a good 40 minutes. And so this is your opportunity to ask my opinion, my thoughts, or my actual facts about what you've got cooking, what I'm seeing, because I'm in boots on the ground with firms. Any topics anyone would like to cover, anything that I can help you with as far as tech stack, or a value add to what you've got going on in your business where I could be of help.
I'd like to ask an easy one to get going.
Go ahead, Mackenzie. Saw you turn your camera on. Figured you'd have a question or a comment. Please go ahead.
Kristen, I see a lot of note takers on the Zoom today. What is your #1 favorite note taker if a company was going to implement it today?
I think that's a great question. I always have a caveat, and I am going to answer your question, I promise, Mackenzie, but what always gets hard is the #1 question I get asked is, if you were building an RIA tomorrow, what is your favorite things that you would put in your basket, right? And the challenge is I don't have any favorites. Of course, I love special things about everything that is built. I always dream of, bringing in John Rourke, who owns Wealthbox, and Brian McLaughlin, who used to own Redtail, and Eric Clark, who used to, manage Orion, and then a bunch of my Salesforce people. And I wanted to lock them in a room and be like, can you just get your heads together to get all the favorite things, in one thing? It's starting to get that way with the AI tools as well. There's certain things that I like. So in that sense, the caveats are this. I really like Wealthbox's AI tool because it is proprietary and because it's built right in. So you're not dealing with any of the integrations. It's literally there for you. So I think that's a value if you're using Wealthbox. Do I think that if you're using Redtail or Advisor Engine or some other out of the box, you need to go to Wealthbox because of their AI tool? No. I think Zox and Jump AI are doing a great job as well and have all of the same things. But I love the fact that it's all built in. It's fully integrated with the calendaring, tasking, and it does a great job. I also like the fact that it is not on, it does not have public language sharing. And so that LLM is not an issue, because I think a lot of the governance that we're talking about is this is not only our recipes, but our client data. So I think that when you're talking about, what are we training? and our other RIAs training the model that I'm using just because I'm subscribing to a tool, I think that that can get dangerous. But I also think it could be an advantage because if you're training it off of just your model, maybe you do want the model to be doused with information from other RIAs and other opinions, right? So I think it can be a large challenge. I think Zox has good features. I will say I like Zox's user interface better. That's just me. And everybody, some people open a system and tell me it's ugly and it's my favorite. That's preference. So I sometimes wish that Jump AI's user interface was a little bit more intuitive, but I will say that, and this is a little bit unbalanced, I have worked closer with the Jump AI people and I know a little bit about what they're cooking. I have NDAs with over probably 70 different companies, so there's things I can tell you and things I can't. I do think that Zox has a really good platform. I think Jump AI is probably going farther. Does that answer your question, even though it was a generic answer?
No, it does. That was very
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of meeting note takers in all of my meetings, and I think that it's a really great idea. I will tell you that there's a little of fatigue happening with all of them. They said, there is the bling around them, and now there's a little fatigue. What do I mean by that? Well, it's interesting. One of my clients used it for a couple of months and came back to me and said, I'm exhausted because I'm reading all of these notes before I'm doing anything. I'm reading, I'm tweaking, I'm making sure it's accurate. And is that how this is supposed to go forever? Or am I just doing this, babysitting it for a while? When can I let go of the leash? And I said, well, when does compliance say you can? Right? This is what comes with the territory. Now, here's the catch, though. What I said back to him was, well, were you ever reading your advisor's notes before AI? How do you know that your advisor is giving good advice for the past 5 years? And how do you know what advice they're giving and if you approve, or just how do you know what's cooking in your office, right? So what's interesting is all of us got away without having oversight, but whether it's human or agionic, it doesn't matter. We're supposed to be overseeing this. And I think some of the fatigue is all of us in RAs are recognizing we're not doing adequate oversight, and oversight is exhausting. And the oversight requires skill set that is hard to find, and it takes time. So I'm seeing that a lot where the note takers are great. I'll give you an example. Last Thanksgiving, it was the Monday after Thanksgiving. I had a Monday call with one of my great clients. We were waiting for everybody to join. And I just, of course, was chit-chatting and said, how was everyone's holiday? And this guy, Dan, said, oh, because he has little kids. He has a 5 and a 7-year-old. And he said, I'm exhausted. We've been eating turkey forever. I pulled stuff out of the freezer on Sunday just to feed them. We got to go grocery shopping. Like, it's been a long weekend. And I was like, I'm sorry. We move on. My AI note taker afterwards said, Dan's children are starving, and you must consider going to the grocery store immediately. Not true. I understand where it came from. So I sent it to him saying, ha ha, you better get out of work early. But if I hadn't read that and I hadn't proofed it, I couldn't have made a joke about it and I wouldn't have corrected it. We're dealing with a lot more important things than children starving in our world. And so the oversight is becoming a really hard thing to handle. Anybody else feeling or experiencing that you want to talk about? I know there's a lot of people on here. Half of these numbers are note takers, so don't worry, they're not judging us. No comments? All right, other questions.
I saw some nodding. If you're nodding, you must have something
There's
to add.
nodding. Questions about AI, questions about your tech stack. How are we doing in our CRMs? What do we feel like we're growing out of? Where do we feel overwhelmed when it comes to choosing tech?
And I'm going to jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, we've all been to, many of us have been to Schwab Impact. You go, there's a tech corner there, there's 100 vendors. You go the next year, it's a different set of 100 vendors. So I'm curious how you think about sort of new technology. I've heard you say in the past that you're not a big fan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not a big fan of shiny new objects. You want people to utilize and leverage the tool techs they have, not necessarily go out and buy the immediate new tech and the shiny new object. But I'm kind of curious of how you evaluate some of the new tech that's out there, referencing, the KITS tech map, and then how you think about, the fact that a lot of these tech companies are bought by larger companies in a year or two and maybe no longer integrate or are doing the same things that they used to do, or the reasons why you bought them in the first place. So I'm curious
Mhm.
about how you balance those competing pieces.
Yeah, good question. So number one, new tech evaluation. I work with a lot of I work pro bono, meaning a lot of the startups and a lot of the companies that are new and shiny do come to me because they ask me to evaluate them, or they ask, of course, they want me to promote them to people like you. And so they come to me. So I get to see a lot of them in their starting points. And I'm obviously working with all of the vendors who, have made their footprint. Um, I have to evaluate them as it's a tool. Is it valuable? Would I see firms use it from a me perspective? Putting myself in your guys' shoes, how should an RA evaluate new tech? I think that you're absolutely right. We have to take away the bling factor, and we have to really say, one, what problem is this solving for you? Okay. A lot of time the bling comes from, it doesn't mean I only have one pair of shoes. I have many pair of shoes, but those shoes serve a purpose. I have some heels because they make me feel good and they look good with an outfit. And I have my walking and running shoes because they serve a purpose to support me while I'm running. Um, I think that firms really need to make a decision of what is the value, what is the purpose, and what is it solving for. The crazy part about tech buying is the people who are buying the tech, 90% of the time, are not the people using the tech and implementing it. Executives are making the decision of what to buy. They're the ones who have the bling disease. But then when it trickles down to the ops people and the client service people, are real boots on the ground, we can't live without them people, right? Those are the people who are kind of like, why are we doing this? And so without any of that, this is the purpose, this is the value. Also, you have to understand in today's world of tech, you will buy something and probably only use 25 to maybe 50% of it if you're lucky. Another analogy is when I get into my car, there are a lot of buttons. I've owned it for 4 years and I have not pushed half of them. Okay. I know where the sunroof is. I know where my where my accelerator is. I know where the important stuff is. So I think that it's that same idea. A lot of firms think a system has failed because they're not using it or it wasn't built correctly. No, they're just building for all of you. Okay. Just like your iPhone, you use certain apps and I use certain apps, and I'll never use the Notes app. Doesn't matter. I use the Reminders app. My kids make fun of me all the time. Okay. So it is preferences, and you have to kind of swallow the cost and not using it completely. There are a lot of supplemental tools that are coming out. The biggest area of supplement that I'm seeing, and that has been happening for a while, but we're starting to see an explosion, is the financial planning tool. That is where a lot of people are starting to feel fatigue as well. Well, I have eMoney, I have Money Guide, I have Right Capital, or I might have two out of those three because they fit the model. Isn't it crazy how 10 years ago, one of those two tools did cash flow really well, and the other tool didn't do cash flow, right? But now everybody does everything. How come I need Right Capital and Money Guide Pro? So we have some of those conversations. A lot of the Holista plan and the asset maps and all of the other tools, estate planning tools, and trust and will systems, and tax systems is another big one. I think when we look at those, it's really hard because it looks like such bling, but we really are only going to use it for maybe 5 to 10% of our clients. That's okay. We just need to know the intention. What is it solving for? And then we have to keep it in that space of saying it only is for these types of clients. That's where our tech stacks tend to get big, and that's where the price tags start to get big. I don't know if anybody has comments or questions about that, especially in the financial planning area. But when I evaluated, I think we really need to figure out what we're trying to solve for, is my answer to you in long form, Eric. Thoughts or questions on that? Anybody feeling that or have questions on that? The next topic that you brought up, Eric, was the larger buyouts happening, which I completely agree with you. We see it all the time. In fact, that used to be headlines that stopped us, right? Oh, Ryan bought Redtail. We were all supposed to faint in surprise. Now we're not even really surprised when we see that. We're like, oh yeah, another biggie, big monster ate a little monster. Ironically, Michael Kitcesi's stack hasn't gotten any bigger. That PDF, none of those logos have gotten any larger because of that. So I think the challenge with buyouts is every one of these vendors, they want to do everything for you. At the end of the day, they want you to live in their system. And that's the competition we have in the politics we have. Ironically, though, most of the systems still play nice in the sandbox with others. So let's use Orion as an example. Orion bought Redtail. Orion actually still integrates with Black Diamond and integrates with Tamarack and integrates with trading and rebalancing tools that are not theirs, even though they have one. So you'll see most companies play well in the sandbox. Do they share all the data? Do they put up limitations and boundaries? Yes. Do they act like they're still friends? Kind of. Where are we seeing some of that constriction? All-in-one systems. So when we talk about Advizon, right? Back in the day, Advizon used to actually integrate with Redtail and eMoney and all of those things. Advizon is its own CRM, so it decided to cut off all integrations. So because it's an all-in-one, you have everything at your fingertips. From their perspective, you shouldn't need anything else. They integrated with trading and rebalancing tools. Now they have their own. They don't integrate anymore. So there are some systems. Tamarack, owned by Envestnet, does the same thing. Envestnet, ironically enough, is the largest TAMP and third-party manager system out there. And the Tamarack system, now owned by Envestnet, is the least integrative with the least amount of integration partnerships within the entire ecosystem. So sometimes you can be the biggest and still have the most restrictions on your software. Doesn't mean it's bad, just means that you're limited. And so in Envestnet's, Tamarack's take is, we're not going to integrate with it, we're just going to own it, right? So they bought MoneyGuide Pro and they bought Yodlee, and they'll continue to buy. Orion's doing that as well, slowly, but they're still playing with their friends. And when we look at other systems, there's a lot of talk, will AI replace a CRM? Am I not going to need a CRM anymore? I'm biased because this is what I do for a living, but I don't think we have to worry about that right now. I think it's a great idea, but anybody who writes those articles is not telling us exactly how to build something without a CRM. So until I see something as an answer or a solution, I think it's a lot of rhetoric that brings up great strategic ideas. So I do think that there is a lot of buyouts. The good news is anybody buying anybody else out has the infrastructure, the money, and the people to support the old product. We're not seeing old products going away. We're not seeing them disappearing. Back in the day, you used to get 60 days to go find something new. They're not doing that anymore. A good example is, if you remember Portfolio Center, Envestnet bought that. It still exists in the cloud on Tamarack. And I have a client on it still, so I can validate it. So even though Portfolio Center was gone and they ate it up, I think it was 12 years ago, it still exists. So I think we have a stronger infrastructure of these larger companies being able to support what they buy. The legacy systems still minutely exist, but it is hard to decide your loyalty to companies, I can tell you that. Thoughts or questions on large companies, buyouts on tech? Yes, ma'am.
On a similar topic, we've been interested in Altruist, and they have a rebalancer tool, and then they also have the AI note taker with Hazel. So what are your thoughts on that with a custodian also having those tools associated with it?
I am not biased, but I love Altruist, and I know Jason Ring personally, and I think he's a genius in what he's built, and I can't find fault in any of the tech itself. I'm sure you know because you're researching it but for everybody else in the room, Jason has had many ventures in the tech market, and Altruist is his largest, strongest baby that has broken a lot of molds. He's a genius in what he's built, and he's also just a decent human. With that said, Hazel also kind of broke the internet for our small little venture. He actually affected the stock market with his release of Hazel, and made it kind of public knowledge through CNN and Fox and all of the different stations, articles on Yahoo Finance. So that was nice to see somebody that kind of is making it big. My challenge with Altruist is the platform is strong, the platform is smart, it is as efficient as they're saying it is, and what they're selling is true to form. So I like the product itself. The challenge I have is that Altruist is not necessarily the right fit for every type of client and client relationship you have. So what I have seen is smaller RIAs, and when I say smaller, I mean under 100 million or maybe up to about 300 million, depending upon your business model. Altruist is a great fit because it is that custodian plus Hazel as AI, and that's not just note taker, it's an automated trading and rebalancing tool as well. All of the automations, his new account onboarding functionality basically broke our industry, and it makes all the other onboarding tools look extremely mechanical and silly. So the features are wonderful, but it takes the right attribute of a client. Let me give you an example. I have a firm who uses Altruist and Schwab. They have a percentage of their assets on Altruist. And if I had to guess, I would say it was about 20%-ish, maybe a little more. And then the rest is on Schwab. Why? The Schwab clients are of an age or of a fear factor that they're not comfortable with the altruist model once they recognized and learned what the model was. It's almost, and I know this sounds silly, but it's a layer of too much technology that was kind of overwhelming that client base. I don't mean to be ageist or put any other personas out there, but anyone over the age of 70 is not going to fit an altruist model unless you're explaining it to them and they are understanding of how your business is running. So I think it works for certain types of clients. There are some 70 and 80-year-olds who are looking for the modern edge and very into AI. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's not dominant. I also think that the altruist model changes your business model a little. It's doing so much for you and does make things easy. The question is, what other services are you offering, right? And how does your business change? Example, new client onboarding as a workflow in your CRM is totally different for Altruist than for Schwab. So like this firm I'm talking about, they have two different separate workflow platforms built because everything you do for that client is different because of the technology behind it. Does that resonate? Yeah, so I think I love it. I wish I could get every firm on it. The old legacy model of RIAs, and it also fits heavily for very financial planning centric firms, especially if you have, more of a passive investment strategy. If you're, sticking within your models, you're not creating models for every client. If you're, DFAing it, dimensional funds, you're doing stuff like that, it fits a lot better. Advisors who wants their hands in everything and really are proud of opening accounts for clients, it doesn't fit.
Great. Thank you.
You
Do you think
bet.
altruist to be bought by Schwab, Kristen?
Not if Jason has anything to say about it. Yeah, I don't think so. Schwab can't handle another buyout. They're still working on TD, and what are we in year 4? And they still don't know if you guys are going to get iRebel for free or if they're going to charge you. So, and Schwab is not a tech forward. No custodian is, to be fair. Fidelity isn't tech forward either. And Pershing is, the Amish community of our industry, so we don't even have to worry about them. But and I'm sorry if anybody's on Pershing. I didn't mean to offend. I'm just stating
Or if
facts.
they're Amish.
Yeah, I mean, and it's great to be Amish. I love the Amish. I just don't want to be one. So I think that the custodians can't handle what Jason has built, and I'm not sure the custodians want to be that. It's an interesting question, Eric, because for a while, Schwab and Fidelity, I won't talk TD because I'll cry because I miss TD so much. But Schwab and Fidelity, they dipped their toes into owning their own technology for a while. For example, Fidelity dipped its toes in and was going to do account reconciliation and performance generation. And then they got a taste of it and were like, whoa. I actually spoke for Fidelity and eMoney for a full year. We did a tour in 17 cities, and I was a part of their beta tester of it. And when they realized, oh, you mean I need a billing platform and I need a client portal that doesn't just show transactional statements and it got a little overwhelming, and they dumped it over 18 months later. Schwab has done the same thing. Ironically, Schwab actually does performance generation at a minimum for clients that have less than 50 million on the platform, and it's a minimum basis, but it's an old portfolio center engine that they're using and it hasn't been updated in over 15 years. So if they wanted to, they would. I think that's a trend going on social media right now. If you're on TikTok, if he wanted to, he would. If the custodians wanted to be in performance and all of the other automations, they would. You know, TD Ameritrade created the iReval tool. It's the one tool that they actually proprietarily built. And it's funny, all of my friends were at TD and they regretted doing it because creating and owning a tool is different than just being a custodian, right? Being a custodian, you're a grandparent. You just get to hold the money and give the money out and then bring it back in and zero it out. So I don't think that they're going to want to get into that business. They already have their new account opening tools that they think are fantastic. It's nothing like what Altruist is. There is a secret sauce there. But I think they're struggling to keep a hold on just keeping up with those NIGOs and keeping up with you guys as advisors. So I don't see that in the future. If they do, I would say it would be Fidelity, not Schwab, because they would want the Altruist type of platform on retail as well. They would open that up on the retail side, because sometimes we think on the institutional side that we're the most important, but we're small potatoes compared to the retail platforms. We remember that every once in a while when we see remember the old commercials from Schwab, Just Ask Chuck, right? And they were playing during the Super Bowl and we all got upset because it wasn't for us. Yeah, that's when we realized that we're a little bit smaller than their retail platforms. And the Fidelity 401k retail side of it would blow us out of the water. So I don't think there's any fear there for Altruist, but it's interesting. He just posted a podcast this morning, actually, that I haven't listened to yet. But the header, which came up, of course, for me was "The tech stack is dead," which is funny. And they're taking that take, right? I think all of us sitting in the room today could say, well, it's not. I need a tech stack to run my business. So for today, I need one. I like the idea of it, and Altruist is getting there. But you do have to put all your eggs in one basket over there if you're going to do it. So. Thoughts or questions on anything else, topic related or unrelated? No questions about AI. Everyone's using it. No problems. When the SEC comes in and audits you, you're feeling good.
I have more
Yes,
questions if no one else is going to ask questions.
Go for it.
It's all you.
All right. So we're actually in the middle of an SEC audit.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm not the CCO, but so yeah, I think that's one of the things. I've been trialing Jump AI and I really like it. But that has been my hesitation to roll it out to the team, is we haven't like totally put all of the policies in place. So are there resources or recommendations you have for that, like of how to be compliant? And I feel like we just never get good answers on that. And last time I was drilling this with Jump was back in the fall, and I kind of felt like they didn't have their act together, and I felt like everyone should be asking those questions. And I was like, don't you just have a handout of what policies I need to have in place for the SEC?
Sure.
And they didn't. So
Yep.
I don't know if anyone else has experience with that or a good resource, or if you do, Kristen.
Yeah, lots of good things there. Number one is definitely go back to Jump, but let me give you the caveat, because if it's been since last fall, I mean, things change like we change our underwear around here. So you definitely want to check back in. With that said, I'm going to give you an analogy, and just to make it kind of resonate. When I got my iPhone, it did not tell me how to set up my iPhone. It told me how to turn it on and how to change it to English. And then after that, if I wanted to go to, an Apple store and sit down with the 90-year-olds to figure out how to do it, but I just figured it out. I think where you have to separate is Jump AI is a product. It is not their job to tell you how to use that product. And it is not their job to tell you how to be compliant with that product when everyone uses it in a different way. Will they have potential recommendations and will that grow? Yes. But where we have a very large gap is, to be clear, these vendors have no guidance because the SEC has not told anybody how to do this. So all of them are very hesitant in giving you that recommendation because you could very easily say, well, Jump AI told me to do it. So it is not their job. And this happens not just with what you asked me. I get this all the time, right? Like, I implemented Black Diamond and no one taught me how to use it. Well, there was training and you were onboarded and there was implementation specialists, but it's not their job to tell you how to run your business in the system. It's their job to show you the features of the system, your job to implement it and how it fits. So to be fair, most of them are not going to have governance rules because that's how you run your business, not how you use the product. And they could get into trouble if you kind of reverse osmosis that and say, oh, we don't want the SEC coming to us as a vendor saying, because we said this, this is what you did. So will there be recommendations? Yes, it's a big problem. The fact that the SEC is just letting us all kind of do our own thing, right? They did the same thing when the robo-advisor came out, went uphill and then went downhill. They actually got away with not having to address it because it died so quickly. I don't know if they're waiting for that to happen again with this, but it's coming. As far as governance, it is extremely hard. I do know, and I can send you some resources. There's some larger consulting firms that really work on the compliance side in helping you with governance creation. What I will tell you is there is no manual, there is no paper, there's nothing that can be delivered to you that just says, boom, this is how you plan the party. That doesn't exist because every firm is different and your comfortability of what you're willing to share and what your processes are all different. That's the unfortunate part. I will tell you to go over to Ezra Group. That is one of the largest consulting firms in the industry. I will tell you I am biased, so totally honest. They hire me along with about 30 other very good industry tech experts. And we all have our own niches. So for example, they hire me for CRM implementation and best practice, and also a little bit on the portfolio management side. But they have developed an AI governance oversight package that they're offering, and they do a great job of that. To be fair, most firms who hire them are over $1 billion, at least a couple billion, and because they have the money, they have the time, and they need large governance. Where do you go if you're not that really big firm? It's usually up to the compliance officers who are developing this, and you do have to kind of, the best way to look at governance from the AI factor is there's two ways. One is look at all of your processes. So literally look through your workflows and say, if we wanted to use AI there, is it okay? And how do we use it? And then in that moment, say, how much data are we willing to share? Going back to my previous comments, are you interested in being in a locked down system, right? Do you want your modeling of your AI agent to only be utilizing your data within your firm? Or do you want it to use the resources of other firms? And that's usually the largest piece of the governance you need to figure out, which has its own pros and cons. The oversight of it.
Sorry to interrupt, but you
Yeah.
mentioned Wealthbox. Is Wealthbox the only one, to your knowledge, that operates like that?
Jump AI and Zax allow you the ability to lock it down for yourself if you want to, so they will customize for you if interested. And that depends on your contract with them and all of that. So they do share data between, and they will lock it down if you're interested. And I think it's a good question, Mario, because I have firms who come to me and say, I really don't want the model being trained by others, but if our model's only ours, is it being trained well enough? Like, I don't, it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
want to
this.
use everybody else's, but I don't want them to use mine.
Exactly. And that's not how the world works, because that's how all RAs work, right? Is can I see what you're doing, but don't look at my paper, right? And that's the hardest part. And then I think that there are layers that firms are really putting in. There's a difference between sharing data for analytical use. So I have a lot of CRM AI happening. I want to know all of the analytics, and then I want to create a side dashboard. Basically, we're creating data lakes, right? And I want to see the dashboard of all of the pending tasks and open tasks and all the things that are happening, our client segmentation. To me, that's different than advice-driven AI. And that's where I think we feel a little bit nervous and fearful. How much are we using AI for generating advice driven items. And that's where sometimes these tools, Mackenzie, to your point of using Jump AI, those tools are generating, Wealthbox creates ideas, Jump AI creates future tasks. And that's technically advice. I think you should call them about their RMD next week because you mentioned it. Or, so I think there's some of these pieces that we're still investigating. As far as governance is concerned, you need to decide, is it data analytics, meaning I, I just want it to look at these 1,000 records and give me the output based on date of birth, tags, keywords, Rolodex information and segmentation info versus advice driven governance, which I think is a different bucket. So I'm sorry there's no magical, manual of here's the governance. That does fall on the SEC and they're hiding from us with this. And that is probably the hardest. And it's funny because I get on webinars, I watch all this stuff, I do it all. And Orion and Redtail just had one about 2 weeks ago. And I was excited because they had all their chief compliance officers and all their people, and they talked about strategic ideas, but they didn't give one, takeaway like you're looking for. And so it can get frustrating when you're looking for the tangible.
I think that that's actually helpful, Kristen, is that there's not a resource or there's not a one pager.
You're not missing anything. Yeah.
That's helpful in itself.
Yeah. I'm sorry there isn't, but
now.
I hope that helps. Yeah, exactly.
And I can
Questions
keep
or
going.
thoughts on that?
Well, I know
Questions or
we're
thoughts?
kind of winding down on time. Any other topics, AI or otherwise, before we run out of time? Anything we didn't hit on yet?
I know a lot of people are thinking things and it's hard to bring it up in front of such a large group. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention and listening today. I am happy to chat with all of you. You're welcome to schedule a call if you have, individual needs or questions that you want to ask. If I could possibly be helpful, that would be great. And I just appreciate you taking the time.
Well, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to throw one out there while we still have you.
Sure.
Maybe nobody's wondering this, but all of the folks on this call have established practices. They built their practice off of the technology of the day. Are there any telltale signals for when a need for change is quote unquote worth it? Like, what is it that you see in practices that would inspire somebody to say, you know what, we need to change our CRM, we need to change, like, because I've seen a lot of firms that they think that changing the technology is going to be the savior, and then it's 50-50. They like what they went to better, or they like what they came from better and wish they never made the transition.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, as these business owners and operations folks are thinking about this stuff, what is a good way to know if you really need to fix something in the tech stack?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't move firms very often. As much as I talk about all this tech, I do a lot of implementations. When people come to me, 90% of the time we're optimizing what you have, which is it's a common thing. What that means is that you don't have a CRM problem, you have a people problem, an adoption problem, or a commitment problem, right? You just got to go to the gym, you got a membership. That's usually the challenge. When are you growing out of a system? Typically, you're growing out of a system when you're craving things that don't exist within reason. So, for example, I have firms that are in like a Redtail or a Wealthbox or an advisor engine, and they're complaining that the system doesn't have all of these automations and the lead generation is really poor, and they really need to be tracking their prospects and they're really growing. And when I hear that, then that tells me you are in a Volvo and you want the Maserati, but get ready, right? That means you're looking at a HubSpot, a Salesforce, maybe both. And now we're all of a sudden into $1 million systems with oversight. And so sometimes when you're growing out of a system, the challenge is in our industry, we don't have any middle grade anymore. We either have out of the box or Maseratis. And that's the challenge for firms. So a lot of times middle grade, they want it, there is nothing to go to. Remember when we used to have smaller portfolio management systems? Now it's Orion, Tamarack, or Black Diamond, right? Unless you're in an Advison. So, and those are your forever homes. Systems that are not forever homes. CRM, although it should be your forever home for at least 5 to 10 years, but you might be moving. Financial planning tools. You will never just convert to a new financial planning tool. It's not necessary. You just will add them on. So this client's great for eMoney because I want to click 17 times. Very complicated. This client's perfect for Right Capital because I just need a simple plan, modern interface. So financial planning tools you'll just add on to and have more of. The growing out also is, and people think this is true, by the way, just because you're adding more people doesn't mean you need efficiencies. Okay. You're lean and you should have every single person on this call, you should have more people on your staff. You just haven't hired them. Okay. So that's not the problem, right? So adding more people doesn't necessarily mean that you're being inefficient or that you need more systems. It could mean that your processes are not well defined and that you're not systematized. Can we bring efficiencies? Yes. Can I replace 2 of your staff and you can just let them go because miraculously you have magic happening? Absolutely not. The more systems you bring on, the more people you need to just manage the systems. David,
Okay.
David Shotwell, I'm just going to ask you to please tell me the name of your dog because he's the cutest thing ever.
Oh, that's Jolene, and she
Thank
thinks
you.
it's dinner time. You're
I
welcome.
needed that. I'm missing my dog, so thank you for letting her be part of the call today.
This one's Towns.
Oh my gosh, there's 2 of them. My heart. Wonderful. All
Well,
right.
thank you very much, Kristen.
Of course, I
And thank
appreciate
you,
everyone.
everybody.
You bet.
You know how to find Kristen, but if you wanted us to make the introduction, we're happy to do it. Really appreciate you participating today, and hopefully you found it helpful and have a few takeaways to bring back to your practice.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.